One of the earliest wild wasteland opportunities happens almost right after leaving Goodsprings upon completing our character. If we take the road south out of Goodsprings towards Gene's skydiving, we see a little wagon to the side of the road. We see tires and a ruined crate, but no loot. However, having walked this way, we find a path winding through the rocks. At the end of the path, we find a split. To the left, we see a windmill. To the right, we see a windmill. Going right first, we see that the windmill is attached to some sort of tank with a spigot at the end. We can drink fresh water from this tap, and at the base of the windmill, we see a concrete trough, and we begin to understand exactly what this is. This is a wind-powered water pump. Goodsprings isn't called Goodsprings for nothing. There is likely a freshwater spring here, and this wind-powered water pump brings the water to the surface. Nearby, we find another tank that was likely used before the war to store this fresh water. Heading back to the trail, we see another wind-powered water pump, but many of the fans of the windmill have broken off. Continuing southwest of here is another one, but this one is in utter ruin. The tank is buried and the trough is filled in with dirt. Here we see a ledge overlooking flat land to the east. Below us is the remnants of a campfire, and directly beneath us is the marked location Goodsprings Source. So this is the source of the springs that give Goodsprings its name. Here we find what is likely the best preserved wind-powered water pump. The trough and tank are all intact, and we see that the locals have been using it for the past 200 years. There are lots of water buckets scattered all around. Since this is a source of fresh water in the Mojave, people have been camping here. There are piles of boxes and radios stacked up, and heading east we see the remains of two campfires, one by a trailer and one to the southwest. As we approach the trailer, we see a man walk out. Getting closer, we notice that he's crying. His name is Barton Thorne. Barton, why are you crying?
Hello? Can you help me?
Sorry, I got my own problems.
I could pay you.
50 caps or I walk.
I'll give you whatever you want. Just hurry.
So what's wrong?
My girl is trapped by geckos on the ridge, and I can't get to her. Please, she's going to die.
Where is she?
Go up the path, past the broken radio tower, and go to the right. They're at the top of the trail.
Sorry, too dangerous.
But she'll die if you don't help.
All right, Barton. I'll see what I can do.
You will? Thank you for helping me. Please hurry.
Heading into his camp, we do see two mattresses, so his story sounds plausible. Moving towards the campfire, we can use it, but it looks like it hasn't been lit in some time. Now, to follow his instructions. Turning southwest, we see the crumbled ruin of a radio tower. The top has been completely snapped off and lies in a wreck at the base of the radio tower. But climbing the hill, we find a path behind it, and here we see some geckos. They're young geckos, not too much of a problem. We should be able to take care of these. The path then moves to the northwest. As we move to the other side of a large boulder, we see one off to the northwest. And then rounding the boulder, we find another. Then, as we climb the hill to the north, we get rushed by a swarm of them. And we got them before they could swarm us. At the top of the hill, we see that even though these geckos are young, they're far from innocent. There is a puddle of blood right next to 3 human skeletons and the dismembered torso of a person yet to be consumed. But then we see a triggered bear trap. Looking up the hill, there's a footlocker. Climbing up carefully, we see another bear trap, but it hasn't been triggered yet. Inside the footlocker is some leather armor, and sidestepping the bear trap, we find a mattress and a very strange sight. Creeping closer, we trigger a wild wasteland event. This is the remains of Johnny. Johnny lies dead flat on his back. In his right hand is an ace of clubs. On the table next to a burning cigar are 4 more ace of clubs. And on the ground in a line are 4 red balls. What on earth could this mean? This may be one of the most obscure Wild Wasteland references Obsidian included in Fallout New Vegas. I had to do a bit of research for this one. This is a reference to the proposed but never realized steampunk game called the Zyborn Clock. It was proposed by members of the Something Awful forums around 2003. The main character of this steampunk RPG is a guy named Johnny Five Aces. Hence why the corpse here is named Johnny, and we find 5 aces. I found what I think was supposed to be a rough draft of an old script, but it was hard to understand. From what I gather, this Johnny Five Aces was like a treasure or bounty hunter who was trying to find a device called the Zyborn Clock, a device which allowed him to travel through time. But he was constantly being followed by a group of people who could even take the form of innocent children to spy on him. These people called the Zyborn Clock the Golden Egg, and they tracked Johnny Five Aces throughout time to try and get it from him. That's about as far as I was able to understand. Development didn't get very far. There were only a few people who were ever on the project. Only one of them was a game developer, and he eventually was fired from the project for criticizing it. It was abandoned and then became a bit of an in-joke on the Something Awful forums. Ever since then, it's been a bit of an obscure joke, mentioned here in Fallout New Vegas, and he also made an appearance as a playable pilot in the 2016 game Brigador. His iconic look, as seen here, the strange eyeglasses, the sort of smarmy-looking face, comes right from the concept art that the original developers created for it. And the 4 red balls comes from the bizarre way one of the developers tried to explain time travel in the game. Here's how they describe time travel working in the game. When an object enters the time stream, time begins to correct itself. Let me use this as an example. Imagine 4 balls on the edge of a cliff. Say a direct copy of the ball nearest to the cliff is sent to the back of the line of balls and takes the place of the first ball. The formerly first ball becomes the second ball, and then the second ball becomes the third ball, and then the fourth ball falls off the cliff. Time works the same way, but hence the 4 balls. Someone at Obsidian was familiar with this very obscure Zyborn Clock game idea and decided to immortalize it with this Wild Wasteland tribute, which I think is brilliant. But after clearing this ridge of geckos, we never found Barton's girlfriend. Did they eat her? Is she one of the corpses we found in their nest? We can head back down the hill to talk to him, but as we do, we see that he's running up to meet us.
Sorry I tricked you, but thanks for clearing out the geckos. Now I can get to that stash up there, after I deal with you.
Over here! And with that, we complete the unmarked quest, Barton the Fink. There is one unrelated thing I should mention before we end. Back on the road from Goodsprings, if instead of turning right towards the wrecked wagon, we look left, we see a ruined refrigerator. As we approach the refrigerator, we again trigger a Wild Wasteland event if we have the trait. Inside the refrigerator is a mangled skeleton, and lying on top is the Suave Gambler Hat. This, of course, is a reference to Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, wherein which Indiana Jones survives a nuclear blast by locking himself in a lead-lined refrigerator. Looks like in the Fallout universe, such a tactic wouldn't work so well. Whomever tried it here sure got catapulted, but didn't make it outside of the refrigerator. The Suave Gambler Hat is a unique item. You can't get it anywhere else. It has the same effect of many of the hats in the game, granting +1 to perception, but it has a completely unique look. It looks like Indiana Jones' brown fedora, so it's a bit of a collector's item you can only get with the Wild Wasteland trait. And that's the full story of the Goodsprings source and Barton the Fink. 'Tis the season, and I'm away from the office for a while, so I whipped up a bunch of these Fallout mini-sodes to tide you over until I get back. If interested in my shirts, you can find a link to my shirt shop in the description below or by clicking here. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon or a member here on YouTube. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you all have happy holidays.